It is time for a how-to buddy
Right!
Yes.
outdoorsy type edition.
Because there was a fire alarm.
Because yeah, people are either pulling things or people are burning things because people are retarded.
Yeah, as you can see by the giant crowd over there. So we're doing
I
this.
vote all of the above, by the way.
But yeah, we've been playing and training and practicing with cards a lot in the last couple weeks. It's been tiring, frustrating, all those kind of things.
Ball numbing.
Wild ride.
And we've learned some things about this game that make it very different from Yu-Gi-Oh! Despite it being played with a similar idea as Yu-Gi-Oh! Things like draw power aren't always the best way to go. Like Dragonic Grimoire, for example. It seems good on paper. And then you play it and you realize, wait, it doesn't work for me until I'm already halfway dead, so it's dead in my hand most of the time. And then you got things like gauge adders. Seem good on paper, extra gauge, do stuff, but you actually generally aren't that low on gauge unless you're going for a Draconic Punisher, Gargantua Punisher, an impact card is what I'm trying to say here.
And then there's things like Dorcas that screw me over.
Shut up, man. Dorcas is bad. But then on the other side of the fence, you got things like Crimson Slash. It seems like it's a bad idea.
And
One for one.
1-1 trade, that's it.
But in this game, that's not too bad, as your crits are doing more than just one damage. So it's like not as bad as we thought it would be. In fact, it's arguably way better than the bigger one, which is with Thunder Devastation. 2 gauge to wipe out the field of 5,000 or lesses. Which it sounds really good until you realize usually your opponent only has like 2 guys on the field anyway. It's really only
just using 2 Crimson Slashes. When you really don't need that many.
Yeah, usually it's only one deck that actually you'd want to do it in against, and that's only because you want to wipe out Magic World's field really fast. And that's about it. And I guess without further ado, that brings us to the topic of this buddy right. Ratios. Yes. Because outside of the new things we learned about different cards doing what, we also learned what kind of ratios work best for decks. And in general, we found it works very akin to what Magic World 72 Pillars implied us to do. We'll start with monsters with more detail.
Exactly 24. Now, of course, it's a bit of a hyperbole, but
it's a good number to work with.
With an even split down the middle between
There's size
your
1s and 2s.
If you've got 0s, just treat them like 1s, really.
Well, I do the same thing.
So basically a little bit less than half of your deck.
Yep. It's really good because you get the amount. You at least get 2 monsters on the field, which is generally all you're really using to begin with. Because when you think about it, if you're using weapons, you're going to be keeping your center open half the time, if not most of the time.
Monsters go on the outside. They're typically not targeted. If they do get nuked by something, you've got a replacement on hand.
Yep, it's generally not that big of a deal to have a field full of them, because unless you don't have a weapon and you're trying to defend yourself, of course. But that's a different story entirely. I guess you.
Size 3s, if you play them, are typically more tech.
Yeah, if you have like a couple extra spaces in your deck, just throw them in. It's because even though some newer ones are being better than others, it's still really hard to justify using 3s.
Because so much gauge, my god!
Yeah, they cleave out your gauge for investments that aren't always worth it. The closest we got is that guy who costs 1 gauge and has move.
Oh, man.
That guy's actually really good.
And then we play him and discover he's
And then they
really
turn out
good.
he's bad too. But
We'll get back to
we'll get
him
back
on
to
the
you on
sack.
that. It's good on paper. Let's say with that. It's really good on paper. Oh, and you can alter the amount too if you want. It's like you can go 25, 26 if you really want that monster heavy play style. But ultimately 24 tends to be the really good number, the sweet spot. Wouldn't recommend less because not seeing monsters is never good.
Yeah.
They're your momentum.
Meanwhile, Magic World slants the ratio the other way, kind of, where it just doesn't play those size 2s outside of your 3 crit option.
It's
Because
ultimately just
your field needs to be full to get the most out of it due to your weapon not attacking.
yeah. So it usually goes all size 1s, but still relatively 24 because that's how many good
Exactly
72
how many
pillars
they
there
have.
are. And that lets them do effectively four attacks if you have a field full of them.
Them Gunrod donks.
So annoying. And I guess with speaking of things that aren't monsters, we go on to spells. They are very important. They are your, set up the field to do. They basically do everything. They blow up the field. They can do damage if you need them to. They can block you from damage. They're arguably more important than the monsters for everything but actually attacking.
This range is a bit less strict. It's going to be somewhere between like 10 and 20, depending on who you are, because I know there are some decks that are going to go super impact heavy, and some that just really want all these spells because they're so good.
It's so disgusting, so good. Reading it right now. I guess the alarm has stopped, guys. You can go back in and
We're
Hey!
gonna meanwhile finish this up.
alarm's done. You can go back in, guys. You can claim our spot. Keep going.
Well,
Anyway, continue.
some worlds just don't have amazing spell options to begin with.
Most notably, Danger World.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'll take this guy.
say.
They do have some decent spells, but ultimately it's just like 2 or 3.
Super impressive.
They're not
by
like,
comparison.
yeah, as the president say, Dragon World's 12 shields.
Yes, 12.
Yes, 12. White
See
Dragon
white.
shield will be happening soon. Yeah, so that really just depends on what your options are. Probably go closer to 20 if you got the good stuff, 10 if you don't have a whole lot, or if you have more impressive monsters than spells. Or if you got impacts you're going to use, which we'll talk about after this next one, items.
Alright, so most people seem to be leaning towards 6 at the moment.
At the moment, I prefer
We
7,
personally
and sometimes
have been
8.
going towards 8 just because consistency is a thing.
Danger World has double guillotine.
You never want to be without a weapon.
At least for now. Because at the moment it seems very staggered towards if you lose your monsters, you need a way to protect yourself because your spells can only do so much without any offensive capabilities.
Yeah, like if you're going like Danger World or something.
If Danger World
only
loses
have
all their
so many
monsters, they're
blocking.
dead. Like Armor Use is great for giving them more monsters, but that only works for so long.
Yeah, it's like you only have one nullifying card. You don't have like
That one nullifying card and one weapon breaker.
and
Even freaking the Magic World has technically 2 sets. Magical Goodbye is as good as a shield.
Best card.
not to mention your dragon energy, the thing that makes your monster your shield,
Needs a
only
wep-
works if you have a weapon.
Yeah, needs a weapon to be usable, which is a big problem for Danger World that we'll go into after we see what Booster 2 does for them.
Why you go give Danger World more weapons?
It's funny. They might actually be a deck that can play without them if you try hard enough because they have the size 0s.
That's true. You just go all size. You just go 4 demon and just go crazy. Because Armor Use makes the demon count effectively 8. So it's always an option. But yeah, 6 is okay, I guess, in Dragon World because they have the way that means to keep their monsters alive forever, and they have no less than like 3 or 4 Soul Guarders.
Magic World manages because they have instant draw power.
Yeah, their draw power is just you get to pay what, 8 gauge, draw 2
Engage,
cards.
draw 2, whatever you want.
Yeah, that's the kind of draw power that everyone should have. And not this when you're almost dead, draw 3 cards or whatever. Or in the
Intentional imbalance.
or in the case of Danger World, if you're almost dead, draw 2. But yeah, weapons are important at least for now. Dude, if you want to talk about something that's not important though, let's go to impacts.
Boy,
Now I know a lot of you out there love impact cards, and I can understand why, because they seem really powerful. Don't take my spot. But here's the thing about impacts: you have to build your deck around them, and if you're building your deck around them, if they don't come at the right time, you're kind of caught with your balls in a vice grip.
because you've either got too little gauge by the time they show up, or you've got too much gauge when they aren't showing up, and it gets really awkward unless you're playing like 2 sets of them, in which case, by all means, I mean, you can build a deck that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see someone playing 4 of each Punisher
Yeah, I think.
once the trial deck wanders along.
Yeah, I think the Punishers are the only ones that are even remotely usable.
Unless you're Katana World.
No, well, let me finish.
Sorry.
We'll get to them.
As far as the final phase goes,
As far as the final phase impacts go, they're mostly crap, except for maybe Gargantua and Draconic, only because the blanket immunity that Gargantua has, and the relatively easy payment for the conditions for Draconic Punisher. Gargantua just needs the empty centers and the 4 and the opponent at 4, and you auto kill them almost no matter what.
they are a 4th attack in a deck that doesn't get a 4th attack.
Yep. Meanwhile, Draconic Punisher, it was pay 4 gauge, the opponent's life is at 4, and you have a armor dragon on the
You
field.
need to pay 4 gauge and 2 life.
Yeah, and 2 life, right, and 2 life.
And have the size 2 armor dragon when your opponent's center is empty and they have 4 or less.
Yeah, it's easy to do because that means you can keep yourself protected behind your jackknife if you're getting your ass pounded without having to think, oh, I gotta keep myself open like you do with the Gargantua. But ultimately, even though it's like you slow your deck down considerably just to set up the deck around them, of course.
You don't get to use any of those other sweet abilities you have access to, like Draconic Thunder, which is the best removal card in the game, no holds barred.
It's true, man. And that's not to say all impacts are going to be bad, though, because Katana World has given us some really good hope. And before you say anything about the Magic World impact, it seems cool on paper until White Dragon Shield comes out, and then makes you pay 3 gauge to do 1 damage to your opponent.
I'm not taking that risk, because some Randy Savage out there is going to play the freaking white shields.
Randy Savage.
They do have a practical use, because they also stop penetrate damage.
It's true. Yep, just your effect damage is reduced, and it's like, unless you're Gargantua punishing, it's not going to be stopped. So, but with that being said, there is still hope, because Katana World's impacts are not actually impacts. They are trap cards.
After you set the initial enabler at any given end phase, which doesn't cost you anything, by the way, you just play the card, search your hand, deck, or drop for any card you want, put it in the soul face down, and then the actual impacts are used in response to your opponent doing something.
So, like, you activate a spell, negate it.
Pay 3 gauge, nullify the spell, destroy it, deal 3. Or nullify the weapon, the direct attack from a weapon, destroy it, deal 3. Nullify an impact.
Like, it's
deal 3.
like, these things are great because it's like it punishes your opponent for trying to push for game.
So basically, impacts are only good when they aren't being used as impacts.
Yes, if they are not forced to be in the final phase, they are better because even things like the what was it, Ultimate Smash.
Ultimate Smash would have been fantastic if it were a spell card.
Yeah, if it were a spell, it'd be great. But it's like as a impact card, it's used after you've already got your opponent already has nothing on the field but their weapon and maybe a monster. So, whatever, you know.
Yep.
It's just not worth it, and obviously Checkmate's not worth it.
Jesus Christ. Because you're playing a deck that can't do damage anyway.
Oh God. But yeah,
Soon. I have hope. Because if Bushiro thinks these are an integral part of the game, certainly they do, they're gonna make them more appealing somehow.
Maybe new ones. Maybe they'll evolve like Jackknife.
They could also improve size 3s. They have been doing that.
They have been doing that. They're like better. Even people who used to think that if the size Cs were great, nowadays have learned that they aren't. They know who they are.
That damage up sucks.
Yeah. When you get to playing and you realize that, it's like, man, this isn't worth it. But that has since changed. So I guess to put final thoughts on this is try to stay at the 50, obviously. Minimum is bestest. Go even split. Try it for around 24 on your monsters. About 10 on your spells. 20 if you can afford to. 7 weapons average. Try not to use impact cards unless you're a Katana World.
In which you need to use 7 deck slots. Way. But they'll find a way, I'm sure.
I'm sure they will. So I guess that's it for this how-to, buddy.
Right.
Well, there you go. Hopefully we'll get another couple out here like this soon. We're still going to keep playing with whenever we have time to.
Hopefully no more fire alarms will go off.
Hopefully, but it's COD. Who freaking knows? And well, until next time, everybody, don't make bad moves just because you think you know what you're doing, because it'll always screw you in the end. Trust us.
Ow.
Bye.
I'm not pulling my hands out.